The training hall of the Galactic Combat Academy gleamed under artificial lighting, its walls adorned with weapons from 1,000 worlds. Instructor Zalthor, a towering Corinthian with 4 arms and scales that shimmered like polished obsidian, stood before the assembled class of cadets. His species had dominated galactic warfare for 3 millennia, and his reputation as a blade master was unmatched across 7 sectors. Today, Zalthor announced, his voice resonating through the chamber, we examine the pinnacle of melee weaponry evolution. With a gesture, a hovering display case descended from the ceiling, containing 3 blades that had been wielded by legendary warriors throughout history. The cadets leaned forward, their various appendages, sensory organs, and optical equipment focused on the ancient weapons. Melissa Chun, one of only 2 humans in the Academy's current cohort, sat near the back with her notepad, sketching the weapons with quick, practiced strokes. Beside her, Everett Morrison squinted at the blades, his brow furrowing in that peculiar way that always preceded one of his observations. The first, Zalthor continued, lifting a curved blade with his primary right hand, is the Valkyrie Honor Sword. Notice the weight distribution, 70% toward the tip for devastating cutting power. The Valkyrie conquered 14 systems with these weapons alone. The class murmured appreciatively. Several cadets took holographic recordings. The second, the instructor proceeded, selecting a straight, double-edged blade, is the Thranaxian Warbrand. Perfectly balanced at the guard, designed for the Thranaxian 4-armed combat style. Each movement flows into the next with minimal energy expenditure. Melissa nodded, adding notes to her sketches. The engineering was impressive, even if the design seemed oddly specialized. And finally, Zalthor said, his voice dropping to a reverent tone, the Corinthian Death Fawn. My people's greatest contribution to martial science. Note the forward balance point, the reinforced spine, why are they balanced wrong? The question cut through the instructor's lecture like a blade through silk. Every head in the room turned toward Everett, who had raised his hand but spoken before being acknowledged. His expression was genuinely curious, without a trace of disrespect that Zalthor's scales rippled, a sign of irritation among his kind. Explain yourself, Cadet Morrison. Everett stood, as protocol demanded. Sir, all 3 blades have their balance point too far forward. The Valkyrie sword especially, with 70% of the weight at the tip, the wielder would tire quickly. The recovery time between strikes would be significant, leaving openings for counterattack. The room erupted in chittering, clicking, and various forms of alien laughter. A Dendarian cadet's fronds quivered with amusement. The human thinks he knows better than the greatest warriors in galactic history. Zalthor raised a hand for silence, but his expression had shifted from irritation to something more complex, perhaps curiosity mixed with offense. These weapons were perfected over thousands of years, Cadet. They have been tested in countless battles. I don't doubt their effectiveness, sir, Everett replied carefully. I'm just wondering why the balance is so different from. He paused, glancing at Melissa. She sighed, knowing where this was going. Standing, she pulled something from her belt, a practice blade she'd been carrying since their last training session. It was a simple human combat knife, modeled after designs that predated Earth's space age. May I, sir? Melissa asked. Zalthor's 4 arms crossed in a gesture of skeptical permission. Melissa approached the display, holding her knife beside the ancient weapons. Human blades are balanced differently. The center of mass is typically at or slightly behind the guard, right here. She indicated the point on her knife. It makes the weapon feel lighter, allows for faster direction changes, and doesn't tire the arm during extended combat. Inefficient, Zalthor declared. Less cutting power, less momentum, more control, Everett countered, moving to stand beside Melissa. Sir, would you permit a demonstration? The instructor's scales rippled again, but his eyes gleamed with the competitive fire that made him a legend. Very well. Sparring circle. You will use your primitive human blade design. I will use a training version of the Death Fawn. First to 3 touches wins. The class scrambled to form a circle in the training area. Melissa handed Everett her knife and whispered, Don't make him look too bad. We still need to pass his class. Everett grinned. No promises. The duel began with Zalthor's characteristic aggression. His blade swept in a devastating arc, using all the momentum its forward balance provided. Everett slipped aside, his knife barely moving to deflect the blow at the last possible moment. The recovery time, exactly as Everett had predicted, left Zalthor's flank exposed. Everett's blade touched the instructor's side. First point, the Corinthian's eyes widened. His next attack came from a different angle, faster, more calculated. But again, Everett's blade moved with minimal effort, redirecting the heavier weapon and flowing into a counterattack. Second touch. Impossible, someone whispered as Zalthor changed tactics entirely, abandoning the powerful swings for quick thrusts. But the forward balance that made his blade a devastating cutter worked against precision stabbing. Everett's knife wove a defensive pattern that seemed almost lazy in its efficiency, then darted forward. Third touch. Silence filled the hall. The instructor stood motionless for a long moment, then slowly lowered his blade. "Explain," he said simply. Melissa stepped forward, her voice carrying to every cadet. "On Earth, we didn't have forearms or enhanced strength or armored scales. We were relatively weak, slow, and fragile compared to most predators on our world. So we had to be smarter with our tools. We couldn't rely on overwhelming force. We needed efficiency, endurance, and adaptability." Everett continued. "Our blades evolved not to deliver the most powerful single strike, but to deliver many strikes without tiring, to change direction instantly, to respond to any threat. We balanced them for the limitations of human physiology." Zalthor looked at the ancient blades in the display case, then at the simple human knife, then at his two human cadets. Slowly, his scales shifted color, a sign of contemplation among his people. "I have studied warfare for 70 of your years," he said quietly. "I have mastered 17 weapons forms from 9 species. And today, 2 first-year human cadets have taught me that perfection is relative to the wielder." He turned to address the entire class. "This is why we study together. This is why the Academy accepts warriors from all species. Not to learn who is strongest, but to learn how strength takes different forms." He looked back at Melissa and Everett. "Next week, you two will co-teach a session on human blade design and combat philosophy." Dismissed. As the class filed out, chattering excitedly, Melissa bumped Everett's shoulder. "You know half the cadets are going to hate us now, right?" Everett shrugged, grinning. "Yeah, but the other half will want to learn. And Zalthor, did you see his face? He's actually excited about this." From behind them, the instructor's voice rumbled with amusement. "I can hear you, cadets. And yes, I am excited. After 70 years, I finally have something new to learn. Perhaps you humans aren't as primitive as we assumed." Melissa and Everett exchanged glances and smiled. In a galaxy full of species stronger, faster, and more advanced than humanity, sometimes the greatest weapon was simply thinking differently about the problem. And that, they were beginning to realize, was humanity's real strength. Not in being the best at any one thing, but in finding new angles everyone else had missed. The ancient blades remained in their display case, honored relics of proud warrior cultures. But beside them, by the next morning, a new addition appeared. A simple human combat knife, balanced perfectly at the guard, representing not just a different approach to warfare, but a different way of thinking entirely. And in the Galactic Combat Academy, that made all the difference.